let's take a look at ArcGIS notebooks. So ArcGIS notebooks are a way to write Python code in kind of what feels like a Jupyter notebook, and it is really a Jupyter notebook, but it's through the ArcGIS environment. So we can open ArcGIS notebooks and write and execute code right from ArcGIS Pro without doing anything special, as long as you have a newer version of ArcGIS Pro. I think it started in version like 2.5 or 2.6 or something. And then also on ArcGIS Online, if you have the right permissions on your account. So we'll look at how to open those, and then we'll take a look at some basics of using ArcGIS notebooks. Let's first hop into ArcGIS Pro. So I have a project already open. We're just zoomed to kind of some random data here. And from ArcGIS Pro, we can go to our Analysis tab. And notice over here, we have a Python, a little drop down. So we can open the Python window and just write code in the Python window line by line, but that's not what we're doing right now. We're gonna open a new notebook. So notice that it creates the notebook, which is saved as an IPYNB file. So PY for Python, NB for notebook. All Jupyter notebooks get that file extension. And notice that when it opens, it looks just like a Jupyter notebook, if you've ever seen a Jupyter notebook before. So we have this cell-based way to write code, and then we can execute each cell. We can use Markdown. We can have multiple things within a cell, and that's how we can write code. So we can access things like import ArcPy. Shift-Enter to run it, and it will import ArcPy. We can do basic operations. 2 + 2 gives us 4. We can create lists. ABC. And if we just hit enter, then we can also do 4x in list. And then Shift-Enter to run it, so we can have multiple things in a cell at one time. We can also run tools in our cells, something like this. Just gonna paste that in. So we can run a buffer on the scenic points layer that's already in our map. Tell it what to call it as an output, give it the right units and distance for feet. Shift-Enter to run, and it runs it. And I can go back to my map, and I can see that sure enough, it ran my thing. There's a lot that you can do with Jupyter notebooks, not just with ArcPy. There's the ArcGIS API that lets you gain access to all of ArcGIS Online and the data sets that are in ArcGIS Online and all the tools and functionality, even admin tools through ArcGIS Online. I don't know those off the top of my head, but you can go and find those. Just for a quick search, ArcGIS API for Python. So there's a whole set of functionality out there to allow you to use Python with this special ArcGIS API, and you can do things like all of these are all sample notebooks. So if you want to know more about what you can do using notebooks and the ArcGIS API for Python, I recommend looking at the documentation here. You can look at sample notebooks, get support, lots of samples to look at. It's really quite amazing what you can do. Now let's take a look at the other way to get into these ArcGIS notebooks. So we looked at how to get to it from ArcGIS Pro, where it makes this IPYNB file in your default location, which is my Lesson 5 demo folder. But you can also get to it from ArcGIS Online. So I'm logged in to ArcGIS Online as myself, and notice that I have a link up here that says Notebook. I can go to that link, and it might take a moment to open, but when it does open, you'll see any notebooks that you may have already created in your account, which I have a couple. But then you can go to, up here, New Notebook, and you can create a new notebook just like you would in ArcGIS Pro or regular Jupyter notebooks, but then you'll be working with your notebook within the ArcGIS environment and have ready access to all the ArcGIS Online data and functionality. So just to show you what a basic ArcGIS notebook might look like, let's take a look at this one right here. So this was a sample notebook I created just as a demo. And in the notebook, we have easy access to the ArcGIS API, but you can also bring in other packages as well. So that's what we're doing here. We're actually installing the GeoPandas library on the fly into our notebook so that we then have access to GeoPandas. We're also installing Descartes, and that's for plotting. But then we are reading in data from an online server. It's actually natural Earth data, and it's just continents, like the country boundaries, as a GeoJSON file. We're reading it in, and we're drawing it right here in the notebook. And what's great about all of this functionality, whether you're using the ArcGIS API or GeoPandas or other libraries, is that you can perform GIS analysis right here and create these outputs. And you're working in memory, and then when you're ready to save it out, there's functionality to do that. But we're just playing around with countries right now, and we're making a selection to select only Asia. Here we're selecting only Canada. Here we're actually doing a buffer and a project. So we're actually changing the projection from Web Mercator to, I think it was some type of conic projection. I forget which one. So all of this is possible right from a notebook, right from an ArcGIS notebook, and I'm doing this in a browser. So for this, I don't even have anything installed on my machine. So ArcGIS and Jupyter Notebooks both together are really powerful ways to get access to write and run and also share code. All of the notebooks can be saved out as an HTML file or shared as the IPYNB files. It's a great way to share and document your methodology, or just share it as a teaching tool. Now let's take a last look at another notebook I created for a demo for NR427. So this one is actually getting into the GIS functionality through the ArcGIS API. So notice that we are importing right here, we're importing the GIS module from the ArcGIS API. And doing that allows us to get into the ArcGIS Online content. So we can actually go and get content from ArcGIS Online using that crazy long ID. And this one here happens to be a layer for the Cameron Peak Fire. Here we're getting another layer. This one happens to be Black-tailed Prairie Dog Range in Colorado. So these are layers that I created and shared, but they are public, so anyone should be able to access them. So we can point to data by its ID and access it. And what we're doing is bringing it into memory. So now we can get that layer through a variable, which I call PD layer for prairie dog layer. We can do a map. So we can create a new map object, gis.map. We can add layers to the map, and then we can view the map, which I don't have right here, but then we can also view the map and actually create a little interactive map right here in the notebook. In addition to just accessing data and viewing it from the notebook, we can also access all of the functionality that you would have from a web map, all that analysis functionality. So here in this one, we are accessing the buffer tool, which is one of the proximity tools in ArcGIS Online. So we're taking our prairie dog data and we're just buffering it by 10 miles. And then you can add that output layer to the map as well, although my map is not drawing. So this is just a little taste of what you can do with the ArcGIS API through a notebook. And that notebook again could be through the ArcGIS Online notebooks or from ArcGIS Pro. So really amazing stuff that you can do through here, really simple, lots of great documentation and samples for you. And I highly recommend playing around with it and seeing what you can do with it as well. Thanks for watching.